If you're thinking about purchasing your first airbrush and you don't know which style of airbrush to buy, well, you've clicked the right video. Today we are going to discuss the traditional pen style airbrush versus a trigger style airbrush. I'm going to tell you the pros and cons of both of these types of airbrushes, and I'm going to also give you my opinion on who I think would benefit from using which one of these airbrushes. I will also be discussing another category of airbrushes, and that is your airbrush kit. There are different ways to use your airbrush other than just painting. When I'm painting a model, for example, a Hot Wheel or something like that, there are times that I will just push straight down on my trigger style, or I'm sorry, my pen style airbrush here to get just air to help dry the previous coat of paint, especially when I'm doing just a light tack coat in the beginning. That will help with the drying process so I can continue painting faster. And I have absolutely no fears using this style of airbrush and doing that because I know as long as I don't pull back at all, I will get no paint coming through this airbrush whatsoever. The trigger style, however, like I said, you have to have a lot more finesse to use this. So if you are pulling it back just a little bit and you get a little bit of air come out and you're drying and you sneeze or you twitch or whatever, you take a chance of getting some paint coming out. So I do not use this to dry when I'm painting my models at all. Won't even try it, even though I'm pretty decent at using it. I just don't want to take that chance. Let's real quick just talk about the ergonomics of these two different airbrushes. Let's talk about the pen style first. As you can see, now I'm left-handed, about to do it with my right hand for everybody else in the world that's right-handed. You hold this kind of like you're holding a pen or a pencil. Now the other airbrush here, well, it has a pistol grip on it. So you're holding it kind of like holding a gun, if you will. It's a gun airbrush. As a matter of fact, this one's called the AK-47, which is a pretty cool name if I don't say so myself. But this is, well, in a lot of instances, more comfortable in my hand than this, depending on what I'm going to be painting, that is. We just talked about the ergonomics of these two airbrushes. Now let's talk a little bit more about the usages for each style of airbrush, starting with our trigger style here. If you are researching airbrushing or researching painting, I'm sure you've seen this in the form of like an automotive spray gun, where they hold a gun like this to paint a large car. Well, it's the same premise for this smaller version. This is extremely comfortable for doing large painting projects. Say you're painting a 1/24th or 1/25th scale or larger model car. This is going to work beautifully for laying down a nice coat of paint on your car. It's going to be very, very comfortable. It's perfect for that type of application. Your pen style airbrush will do the same thing. You can still lay down and paint an entire model car with this, but as you can see, when you're doing a large painting session like that, to me, this is all personal, to me this is not as comfortable as this, but it will still do the job, and it will do the job just as good as this one will. What this has over that is finesse. Talking about finesse, imagine we used either one of these airbrushes and we painted an old pickup truck. We have our base coat down, it looks great, but now we want to go back and we want to weather that truck. We want to look like a rusty Hulk sitting in a junkyard or something of that nature. For me, I'm going to use a pen style airbrush for one main reason. I feel like I'm holding a pen or a pencil. And I think for most of us growing up, if you've done any kind of drawing or anything like that, this is going to feel much more natural to you when you come in and you're putting down just itty bitty little thin lines of rust streaks or little oil stains or what have you. I think you're going to have a little more finesse, a little more control when using this pen style airbrush as opposed to this trigger style airbrush. Not saying it can't be done. It will do it. There's no doubt about it. But this doesn't feel natural to me doing something like that as this does. To help you out just a little bit here on decision making, if you think that all you're going to ever do is just paint one solid color on an object, then I would go with just a trigger style airbrush. As I said, you can do finesse work with this, but if your main objective is painting just main coats of paint on models or widgets or whatever you're doing, this in the long run is going to be much more comfortable in the hand to use. If you know that you're going to be doing a lot of fine detail painting, whether it be on a model car or even on a canvas or something of that nature, then a pen style airbrush is going to be more suited for your application. Again, both of these airbrushes will do the exact same thing. It comes down basically to ergonomics, what's going to be more comfortable in your hand. To even break it down a little bit further, if you still are confused, if you don't know which airbrush to purchase, if you don't really know what type of airbrushing you're going to be doing, go with the pen style airbrush. It, in the long run, is going to be more versatile over this one, again, as far as ergonomics go. Just so you know, it's very important to understand that when you buy an airbrush such as this is the AK-47 from Bucasso, and this is the Neo from Iawata. Both very similar in price point, but when you purchase something like this is all you're going to get is just the airbrush. And of course, you need more than just an airbrush. You need the air hose and you need an air source, which is going to add more cost to your airbrushing journey if you don't already have, let's say, a home air compressor. That brings us into our next category of airbrushes, and that is going to be your complete and total self-contained portable airbrush kits, as seen here. This is the Ovaga airbrush kit, and this is, well, this is a no name brand airbrush kit from Amazon. Actually, all of these are from Amazon. The great thing about these here is the fact that if you buy this, you get everything you need to get started. As a matter of fact, this Ovaga here comes with some paint even to get started in airbrushing. This one here comes with a second battery, so you can airbrush for longer periods of times. It also comes with an air hose so that you can remove the airbrush from the battery handle, the air compressor handle itself, which is a cool feature. The cool thing about these types of self-contained airbrush kits is I can still use this compressor with this airbrush if I wanted to eventually get one of these types of airbrushes. That's a major plus in my book. The downfall of using a portable system like this as opposed to having an air compressor is, well, you will run out of battery time and you will have to recharge these to continue painting. Unlike a compressor, which is plugged into the mains and you could paint all day long if you wanted to. And one thing that I want to mention that I may not be 100% accurate with, but from some of the research that I have done, I know a lot of these airbrushes, like these two here, and even possibly this one here, they're probably made by just a couple of different airbrush manufacturers over in China. So they're all going to be very similar in their quality. This one here, made by Iawata, is made by an Iawata manufacturer. So I know that this is quality. I'm 100% positive that this is quality. I have several Iawata airbrushes that I've had for many years. As a matter of fact, this is the first decent airbrush I ever purchased for myself because of the price point. And I've used this airbrush itself for many, many years until I was able to afford a much more expensive airbrush. And I still use this thing once in a while. It works every time without an issue. So I know that this is a quality airbrush. I know it's going to last me a very long time. These airbrushes here, they feel like quality airbrushes. They work very, very well. And now that I've talked in circles and I've confused you even more, let's just nail it down. If you are a first-time airbrusher and you do not know exactly where this airbrushing hobby is going to lead you to, don't get a trigger style airbrush. Get a pen style airbrush. If you have an air compressor, just pick up an air hose and get something like this Iawata NEO, or a Master brand or a Galleria brand airbrush kit. These are really good airbrushes, especially the Iawata. Like I said, this is a quality airbrush. If you do not have an air compressor and you just want to get started right away and buy one thing to get started, then something like these two airbrush kits here. You have everything needed to get started. And as I mentioned, even with this Ovaga, it even comes with some airbrush paints to get you started. With all that being said as well, just so you know, I will put links at the end of this video and in the description to other videos that I have shot over these three airbrushes. I've done reviews on all three of these airbrushes, so you can go check those out. I will also put links in the description below to Amazon Associates page where you can pick up one of these airbrushes if you so choose to do that. Again, folks, I'm going to go with a traditional pen style airbrush for my first one, only because it has a much wider range of finesse and usability over a trigger style. I love this trigger style, and I use this thing a lot when I am painting my models, just because it's so comfortable. This airbrush here came with 3 different needle tip sizes. It came with a 0.3, a 0.5, and a 0.8. All that means is that if I'm using the bigger 0.8, I don't have to thin my paints or my medium quite as much as I do to use it in the 0.3 or the 0.35, or this I think is a 0.4. But you can use the same medium in any of these airbrushes. You just have to learn how to thin your paints. And it's a whole nother topic for a whole nother video. If you have a compressor at home that you can use, I would strongly suggest getting a name brand like Iawata. Even though this is their entry-level airbrush and the price point is very similar to all of these, you still know that they have their name on this airbrush. So there's going to definitely be quality control to make sure these airbrushes come out of the factory correct. Not to say that you're not going to get a dud here and there. I mean, that happens with anything in the world. But the chances of that happening are much slimmer than it is with any of the other no-name brands, if you will, or off-name brands, I should say. These aren't no-names other than this one. This one has no name on it. If, however, you do not have an air compressor at your disposal and you want to get started with the least amount of monetary output at the very beginning, then one of these styles, or any of these kind that are on Amazon have good reviews, are going to be your best bet, because you have your air source, you have your hose, you have your airbrush, and like I said, for this Ovaga brand, it even comes with some airbrush paints. So basically you open the box, charge this up, and boom, you're painting. This one here, a great little airbrush too, with the multiple batteries, which I think is a pretty neat little trick they got up their sleeves there for this, so you can keep painting a little bit longer than you can with maybe this one. But still, both very decent airbrushes for their prices.